I hadn't planned on doing another video on D100 Dungeon when I did the flip through of the Adventurous Companion recently, and you can see the link to that video below. But in preparing for that video, I went through a little bit of the the Adventurer Fast Track option to create a new character, bring them up to the level beyond the initial training. And in doing that, I got drawn in. And I think that's one of the marks of the success of this game, why this game is so great in my opinion, because it really does involve you in running a single character as opposed to, say, a party of four through a dungeon, through a I can't say a story per se, because the original D100 wasn't so much a story. You could create a story onto it if you wanted, but it isn't until the Adventurer's Companion that there's an actual campaign here. I'm not going to be playing the actual campaign, though, although it is offered, and I talk about that a little bit again in the flip through of this book in the other video. I am going to be taking elements of what is offered there for the campaign and bringing them into the story that I create. And I'm going to just show you a little bit how I do that. So what I did was I created my a new character. This is now I've done a couple of videos on this game. I really enjoy it. The original character that I made for the first video that I did still exists, but I decided to just leave him aside, and I wanted to see how the new mechanics worked. So what I did was I got Edwinna, who is a druid high elf, and she is my story about her based on the elements of armor that she is left with and the semi-damaged level of some of them, and most significantly her quest log, which indicates that she completed 5 quests but she failed 3. So she's really quite adventurous, and I believe that based on the the armor that she has left and what she may have originally started with, she and her background as a high elf druid, she is coming from a very noble family, and maybe she was cast out a little bit because she was not falling into the mold of what she should have been as a young druid high elf. She's a little too adventurous. She's a little too brash and brazen in her seeking of adventure, and as such, I want to create. She's got a lot of money. And we're going to see how she spends this money here. But I want to create a little bit of a backstory for her before she sets out on her first quest. And in order to do that, I'm going to move outside of D100 Dungeon for a moment and show you how I do that with my handy tome of adventure design. And if you've watched any of my videos before, you will know that this is one of my go-to reference books, for ease of use as well as amount of content. And if you want to see more about what this is, you can look. I put the link up to another video I did that shows some of the content here. I'm using it both because I like it in terms of what it offers. I'm going to use a very small portion of it, but also because most of its tables are also D100, and I like that synergy, even though of course it's not necessary. So where we're going to go with this, first of all, is let me just step back for a minute and show you. I'm going to be, for Edwina, what I want to do initially is I want to make use of the new option to do witchery, which is basically crafting here in D100. And the way that works is some of the monster parts that you can collect in quests, you can select 3 of them and basically build what ultimately becomes a random potion or anointment, and find out what it will do for you. And I love this option. I love the fact that you can take something or take some things in this case and make something new out of them. So I really want to do that, and I'm simply going to send her initially on a quest to get some monster parts. So it will be a low-level quest in that regard. That said, we are coming in the middle of her story somehow. She has been traveling, and we're needing to find out a little bit about her story and why she's doing this. And that's where I'm moving outside of D100 for a moment. For my quest objectives, though, I'm going to go to the quest maker, and I'm not going to take random. I'm simply going to choose one that gives me, we're going to just do something easy here because I haven't played this in a while, and I need to refresh my memory here. So we're going to choose simply to do looting 3 parts from monsters 43 or higher. Has a quest reward value simply of 1, and this comes into play in terms of what the reward or penalty for it is. So the general objective is going to be to looting monster parts, and we will build this up per the rules here. Where she's going to be doing that is in a new table, a new encounter table. She's a high elf. She's going to be in the forest, and she's going to be wandering around this forest because that makes sense to me. Now, I will say the forest comes from the campaign quest, and I corresponded with the designer just to confirm that this would make sense in terms of level-wise to do it. So I'm pulling this encounter table out because I want to use it. This is not how it is meant to be used if you're following through the campaign, and if you want to not sort of be exposed to some of the campaign material here, don't look at this page basically, but we're going to be using this encounter for the encounters that we come through. We're going to be wandering through a forest, and the question that I need to ask and answer first is why we are doing this, where I need to learn her story basically, and to do that I'm going to turn here. I'd like to find out, first of all, where she is, and I've decided she's in a glade of some sort. And what kind of glade? Well, she's in the Glade of the Unseen Princess. Ooh, Glade of the Unseen Princess. All right, we're going to note that down. And again, let me hasten to say once again that this is not necessary to do for D100. I don't even know if this is going to end up being useful or used, I should say, in my game. But I want to add a little more. I'm not following the campaign that you could follow. Just want to add something, and I don't yet know how I'm going to play it out, whether once I get through say an area, I'll add some additional, maybe I'll bring in some other role play stuff. I have no idea, but this is just what I feel the need to do. I feel inspired to do by what I've got so far. So she's in the Glade of the Unseen Princess in a forest, and we already know her mission, that this is a basic mission. She's just looking for some monster parts. That's what we're going to be getting. So a quote low-level mission, but I really want to do some crafting. So that's what the deal is. Let's see. Could roll up for some master villainous plan. I don't know that we're going to do that. We may just stick with what our patron wants and have this be a little bit more open-ended than having both a motive on the part of the patron and some motive on the part of the villain. That may be too constraining to try to fit in here. We can always come back to it if we want to, and again, we may actually use absolutely 0 of this. I'm going to go now to our location a little bit more. Again, just this is totally for, well, obviously this whole thing is for fun, but this is totally for flavor, really, is what I guess I'm getting at. 28, we are here with some trees petrified into stone. And let's check out some plants here. Unusual plants with some pods that have a human shape. Maybe any animals here or something. The wings of a bat or a bird. Now, so I can't write and talk at the same time. Not great for doing a video like this. The wings of a bat or a bird perhaps are lying around here, and this may come into play as an example of how one could use external material with what you're trying to do in D100. So I've said that we're trying to loot some monster parts, and we shall see how we fare in that regard. When I see something like this that has a link, a potential link to the other system that I'm using, I know that I could, for example, incorporate this if I did not find a monster part I wanted, or if I found monster parts I could not use, or some such. Adding in a story like that, there would be a reason how she could perhaps scavenge for these wings of a bat or a bird, and that would then morph into the rule set of the other system. I'm mentioning this because it's come up in some forums that I've seen, and some questions I've been asked about how you sort of put together different rule sets when you use different rule sets, and how that merging can take place. This is an example. When you see something from one, this isn't a rule set, but when you see something from one system you're using that potentially could relate to another, this could be a way. I could give her a scavenge skill. If I'm going to put some RPG type elements onto it, a basic D20 sort of system, I could assign her attributes. Maybe she could search for this element that she needs for the other thing she's doing in the D100 system. Just a thought, just a little digression there, but we note anyway that there are the wings of bats or birds lying around this glade of the Unseen Princess. And let's see, we'll look a little bit more for any sort of terrain features that might be of interest here. There's fungus, mushroom, and moss. So we are in a glade area: fungus, mushroom, and moss. And we may be coming to the end here. 79, they have spherical elements. Again, maybe relevant, maybe not. And I think that is going to be it right now from what we get from here. I'm going to put it all together and set her out on investigating this glade. Edwinna, the half-elf druid, half-sister of the Maiden Queen, has been set forth from the kingdom in search of their missing brother. As our story begins, battle-scarred Edwinna is wandering the nearby forest, foraging for some restorative potions and elixirs. Always an adventurous sort, she's lost almost as many challenges as she has won. She approaches the Glade of the Unseen Princess, a magical spot so named for her aunt, the princess bride, who vanished on the eve of her wedding to the mysterious prince of the realm. Family lore has it that this had been the long-ago site of the family home. As we're starting here in the middle, we are going to begin with the section on before our next quest, because we have, in our prior adventures, we've attained pretty much a lot of gold, 2260 worth of gold on hand. We do have some damaged weapons, and we will probably be paying to repair some of these to start. Why not? As well as considering some other things. We can do some training, which we probably will do for 200 gold 200 gold to shade a pip on a skill track. That's probably where we're going to go. Maybe doing some of that, as well as we can roll on the needed items table to see what we get. Now we can only let's see, I think we can only roll for our reputation. Our reputation at this point is just 2. So we're limited to 2 rolls for searching the market, for example. I think I'll probably do some searching of the market. Let's see, what table A, one of the tables is a good one for this. Armor we don't need, actually. We'll go to a treasure table, why not, and see what we get. Now the way this works is we can buy any of the items that we roll, but we're only going to be able to roll a total of twice on these, on the treasure, the armor, or the weapons tables. I'm going to go to the treasure table and we'll just give it a roll. So we've got 2 rolls we can do, and we'll see what we can get. I haven't examined these enough to know the differences of the tables, and you know that these are tables that could be rolled on for this purpose because of this icon here. So let's just roll up on table A. This will be our first roll, and see what we could potentially buy. 19. We could potentially buy, well, it's an objective item, so I think we roll again. We get an objective item, and 63. A potion of finer dexterity. Drink to gain +5 dex until your next shaded clock on the time track. Well, that's pretty good. Let's see, how much does that cost? That is going to cost us 150 gold. We're definitely going to take this. Why not? So we'll take the potion of finer dexterity, and I will make a note of this, and we'll do the accounting. We'll do the accounting later for what we spend, and then we'll just go to a different treasure table, and we'll roll also one more time on treasure B table. Let's do this. See, I tried to roll on camera and it didn't work. We got a 26 there. And that is also an objective item, so we need to do that again. You just cannot keep this on camera. 86. 86 is a spell book. A damaged spell book contains a spell written inside. That's great because we do have a spell slot. Now, when I was writing in my spells, I wrote them from the bottom up. I don't really know why I did that. I shouldn't have done that. But I do have one spell slot open for spells I could use given my current intelligence. So that's pretty good. So we're going to go to table S and see what spell we have found in this damaged spell book. And that was a 59. Spell 59 is alter time. Remove one pip or clock from the time track. It costs us 3 HP to do. Well, we're definitely going to take this because you just never know. So that's good. And now I don't know, how much did that cost us? I need to check on that because did I see a cost for the spell book, or that was just something we found? Well, I don't see a cost for the spell book. Did we just get lucky? Is that it? We just got lucky with that? I guess I'm going to say yes. Going to say yes. If I'm wrong about that, let me know in the comments, but I'll try to clarify that on my own. But for right now, I'll just say yes, we got lucky there. And what else could we do? Well, then there's the question of investment and empire building. We will do some of this. I'm not going to go through the investment rules, but in short, there is an interesting, if not fully developed, empire building aspect to this game where you can take money and buy into various aspects of the empire, and then you do an investment roll, which is luck-based, as many investments, all investments are, to see what you get back each turn. I like this mechanic. It's very abstracted, but I like this mechanic because it gestures to a larger world. It places your character, or tethers your character in some way to something abstractly outside of the actions that you're doing and the places that you are, and it makes this game, even though it's a dungeon crawl and it's interior based in that way. Of course, right now we're in the forest, but it gives it externality that I think other games of this nature don't have necessarily. And I'm thinking here, I've played Pocket Dungeon. I love Pocket Dungeon. I've done at least one video on Pocket Dungeon. I'm thinking of Pocket Dungeon, for example. I have not played 4 Against Darkness. People keep asking me if I have and how this compares to that. I haven't played that. I have finally bought and downloaded it, but I never really got beyond starting to look through the rules, and so I can't do a comparison there. Eventually I will get to that one. Anyway, back to this. I want to show you it's table J, the investment roll table. So what happens is when you make an investment, depending on what your investment is and how many shares you buy, you will do a roll on the appropriate table, whether you invest in trade, finance, holdings, or wars. Again, it's very, very abstracted. And then based on your role, you will be able to gain or possibly lose some pips to the area on your sheet of choice. And that happens at the end of the quest. So it's a cool mechanic. I'll do some investment here, but I'll do that off camera. I just wanted to explain that mechanic to you now. Before we get started, a couple of things here. I have recreated the time track here on a piece of paper, and I'm going to use these markers to indicate it. I always find this time track is teeny and just gets messed up and overused. I don't love the constant erasing of the oil and the food and the lockpicks either, but for right now I'm going to stick with that. So I will be using this time track here to indicate time. So we'll set out on our journey and right away consume some oil because we're just starting out here. The other thing I'm not sure about is for now I'm going to do the mapping on this in this notebook with the graph paper. You don't really need graph paper because there's not there's not tactical indications or movement here, but I want it to be in a notebook, so I'm just going to start here. This may change. And then finally, as we're in the forest, I want it to look green, so I'm going to be using some green markers and then finding another way to indicate the actual color of the room, the coded color of the room per the map. And I guess with that said, we will start out and roll on our map table and see what we get here. I guess I'm gonna start here somewhere in the middle. You know, we have a pathway into the forest, and we'll start here with the pathway, and definitely am not any kind of artist, so that is what it is. So let's roll a map area and see what this little glade or clearing looks like. We rolled up a 12, and it is a red spot. No, that's 10. Sorry. Well, it is red. There we go. Having some troubles this morning with the camera. There we go. It's a red spot, so we'll get that drawn somehow and move in there and see what's what. As we are dealing with monster range 1 to 60, our encounter modifier is going to be -40 for this test, for this quest, and we remind ourselves that we're going to be rolling on this D100 forest encounter table and then taking that modifier of -40. So we'll roll this up, and we got a 27 -40, so we are at the low end here. And this brings me to something I want to highlight. That's from the Adventurer's Companion, which is a new encounter rule that I think is quite useful. That basically says if you are using the encounter rule, there's a modified roll that you can do if you roll very low or if you roll very high to give you more variability on the encounter table, so you're not constantly encountering the same monsters. And that is, for example, as in what just happened, if you score 0 or less, you can instead roll 2d10 plus 15 and look up that result on the encounter table. Now, in the case here, I mean, we're just starting out. We encountered some giant oozes, and the potential benefit here are some gold pieces. This is great, actually, because I need to refresh my memory about what happens in combat, and this is perfectly fine. But were I to keep rolling very low, we could use that rule. The other point that I forgot to say here, in the forest table per the campaign quest, you will be entering this area and you will be having a companion with you. And this is an elf guide, and it's going to help you. It's going to give you +10 to your combat roll while he is alive. And any damage that you take in or out of combat can be applied to the guide instead of you. He's got a starting HP of 10, and but he can't be healed. So it is in essence giving you a boost, and why not? We're going to um, we're going to come in here with the elf guide, pick this up from the campaign. As I said, right now this is very much refreshing my memory of what's going on in the game, and now we can set out and encounter the giant oozes in the forest as we enter this glade, which isn't quite as empty as it appeared. Here we are in the forest facing this giant oozes, and apologies for the slight variation in the audio quality right now. My regular microphone went out to dinner without asking my permission, so for a bit we're going to have this alternate mic. In any event, here we are in the forest. We've got these giant oozes that we're encountering, and we will just refresh our memory about these stats here. The attack value, which needs to be rolled below for a hit. Defense value is 0 here. The damage it can do is -3. And you can see, if you read between the lines, or you really read the stats for the narrative and evocative value that they are, this thing is just really an annoyance. It's not really going to hurt you. It's going to be difficult in going away. It has the regenerate capacity, which means it has the ability to restore lost hit points. So each time it rolls a natural 1 on the damage die, it gets 2 of its hit points back. It is a pack, so there are sort of groups of oozes with these hit point values 3, 3, 2, and 2. And it also has the web ability, which means that at the end of each combat round in which it's still alive, I have to make an avoid web test to determine if I will get an attack, or then I will have to make an attack action the next round. So I'll have to basically try to avoid this sticky thing, or just get stuck in it. And so this adds, these numbers and values really add up to be very descriptive if you tend to think about them in that way. So let's see what we've got in our arsenal to avoid this ooze, and I'll show you now what I am carrying. I've noticed on the Game Crafter that the designer does have some cards for sale, but I don't have those, and those are definitely the spell cards. I'm not sure what else is available. I just made myself up these cards using actually my old business card I was forced to get rid of, and I had a lot of it left, so cut up my old business card to make myself these cards about what I'm carrying. And I won't go through everything, but I've got some potions here, and I picked up this legendary necklace. This was all when I was doing my character, my fast build of the character: a potion of greater healing, potion of greater defense, and then I've got I've got some spells here. This Scroll of Resurrection, that is a great one, but it's very costly to use, but it will bring you back from the dead. A Scroll of Open Magic to open a magic door, and I had a couple of other spells that are mixed in. I've got all this stuff, probably not going to really bring it into play here with this combat. I can see this ooze combat just getting to be a bit of an annoyance and perhaps dragging out a little bit, but we'll do some rolls and remind ourselves of the combat sequence. First up, we're going to roll on the monster reaction table to see what the monster may be doing initially here. And we rolled an 8, and if the monster has less its hit points, it's going to escape. Well, luckily for us, or not luckily for us, it did not escape. So we move on to the first combat round, and we'll be making our attack and using for that attack, well, really the only weapon we have here, which is the Glade. And this does a +4 damage to, it's a two-handed weapon, and so as such we will be rolling against our strength value, and our strength value is a 40. So we're looking for a 40 or less to get a hit for that, and we got a 24, so that's a hit. We have a +4 damage on that, so we will see now what
the location and the value of the damage is. And for that, we'll go to our d6 and our d10. And we rolled a 4 and a 5 on that. And that boils down to the location of the arms. Well, it's an ooze, but I guess, well, anyway, it's an ooze, and there's no modifier on that. And the damage is 5. So we have 5 plus 4 is a 9. So we're sort of coming in and slashing at this ooze thing with our glaive for 9 points of damage, and that may be enough to take it out. However, combat is simultaneous, so it's going to be attacking us as well, regardless of what happens to it. And with that 9 damage, let's see, we have 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, you know what? We've gotten through part of the pack, not all of the pack. There's 1 ooze remaining with 1 hit point left. But in the meantime, the ooze is going to be pooling itself around our body, I guess is the best way to say it. That's how it does its attack. It seeks to place its web around us. And so what we need to do is to do its attack, and it had an attack value of 20, I believe. So I should really keep this out. Yes, it had attack value of 20, so we'll first of all see, can it do any attack on us? And it cannot. So it pools around us, but then it kind of recedes as we move around and try to extricate ourselves from it. Now, that being the end of the combat round, we can't forget about the ooze's special ability of web. What this means is that at the end of this round, in order to see whether or not things will continue along, that we can make another attack, we have to see whether or not we are caught in the web. And in order to do that, we make an avoid web test, which is going to be dexterity plus 20. If we succeed, we can attack as normal the next round. If we fail, we're going to forfeit the attack and the attack action, and then we would either have to escape or just be the recipient of its attack, I guess, although that's somewhat unspoken. In any case, so we're going to see if we can avoid this web that is encroaching on us. We're going to get a dex plus 20. Our dexterity is 45, so we're looking for 65 or less to allow us to continue on, and indeed we're rolling nicely at a 26, so we have escaped this web that is trying to come around us, and we would move on now to the next round and doing the monster reaction roll. Then we'll see how it reacts to that, and we'll go back to the D10 for that reaction roll. And we got an 8. So if it has less than half its hit points, it will escape. So basically what has happened is it is going to, on that roll of 8, it's just going to ooze away, and there we were entangled with it momentarily, but for the sticky residue on the forest floor, it is gone.
As the ooze oozes away and leaves us in this empty glade of the unseen princess, we can turn to our search table, and, well, to find table, really, per the D100 rules, and see what we can see, if there's anything here for us. This was a red encounter space, so we're going to be adding the plus 10 modifier. So we'll do that and see what, if anything, of use we find here. And we're rolling a 57. So this will be a 67, and it will bring us to, this is where, thematically it doesn't quite work, but behind a badly hung curtain, a small lever is found. After it is pulled off, a far off rumble can be heard. Shade 1 pip on the lever track. There's not going to be a lever in the middle of this forest. So I'm going to skip this because I'm really trying to stick to my story that I'm developing, my theme here. And in the Adventurer's Companion, I'm just not seeing the search table or find table that is going to be relevant to the forest area. But we know that we're in this glade of the unseen princess, and it's been described to us that lying about are wings of bats or birds among the fungus and the mushrooms and the moss that's here. So we're going to do our own search action based on our intelligence level of 56 to see whether we can actually discern these items and harvest them for ourselves. And indeed, rolling a 22, we do. So we look around the trees that are petrified into stone, these pods with a human shape, and we discover the wings of a bat or a bird, perhaps, that we know are here. And we will be harvesting them and collecting them as we search for the elements that we need to do our crafting at the end of this first mission. We are, however, going to stick to the time constraints that we rolled up because this is going to move us through the consumables that we have. So that did finding those bat wings did cost us one time. So as we remember, we have our time track here, and so we need to spend a time there. And now as we move into the next area, we will be spending yet another time, and we come upon a wandering monster check. So this is where we land now as we begin the next turn, the next part of our journey in this forest. We're at the wandering monster with a 4 modifier, so if we roll 1, 2, 3, or 4, we will find a wandering monster, and we did. So we need to go to our table E to see who has arrived on the scene of this glade that we haven't yet had a chance to move out of. And in our case, table E is actually the forest table. So we'll go back here and roll our d100s and see what is waiting for us here. What is waiting for us is 63, and we have our modified minus 40 modifier brings us to 23, which is a giant spider. It has an attack value of 30, a defense of 2, does -1 damage, 6 hit points. We're going to get a part from it, and it has this web ability again. So that makes thematic sense. There was some ooze and some spiders here in the glade. We have to deal with this giant spider before we can continue on and go somewhere else. As a reminder, those giant oozes, I erased them from the combat track because they escaped. So unless you actually kill something, it doesn't count on your combat track, which is kind of a bummer because we're not getting that gold, additional gold reward for our first kill. In any case, the giant spiders here, the first thing we're doing is we're rolling the reaction, which is a 2, which will be a frenzied attack if it's down in hit points, but it is not. This is the beginning of combat. We've just encountered this thing sitting there peacefully in its web waiting for somebody. So let us take out our glaive again and start slashing away at it with our two-handed weapon. So we are rolling against our strength to see what happens. In 72, we are flailing wildly. Perhaps we're upset that we can't move on out of this area, and we just miss it entirely. And it is going to respond to us with its roll and see what happens here. And it doesn't really do much to us. So that that round was a miss entirely, and we'll go back to seeing then how it responds. It responded with a 9, which is nothing because we didn't damage it the last round, so it's not going anywhere. And we continue on, and I think here is where I rolled a 41. Here is where I'll go off camera and just complete this combat. I'll show you. I'll just do this round. Oh, I forgot. After the that prior round, I needed to roll to see whether I had the web effect. So let me do that before I then have my missed opportunity here. And we will be rolling against our dexterity plus 20 to see if we can escape the web here. So that is a 65 for us, which will allow us to attack as normal. And yes, we could attack as normal, but we missed. And now we're back to the spider at a 43, also missing us. So we're just grappling here, and I don't need to do that on video right now. Well, unfortunately, right after I stopped filming, I rolled a 1, so I didn't get an opportunity to show you what happens there. But when I took a swing at it with my weapon and rolled a 1, what I was able to do was to gain an experience pip in my strength because that was the attribute I was using. And that's the first one there. Had this been an attuned attribute like dexterity or intelligence, I could have gained 2 pips for that roll, but I could only gain 1. Later in the combat, I rolled a 10, which is how I got the second pip filled in during the combat. And the spider went down pretty easily. However, we did get stuck in the web at one point, and as a result of getting stuck there, we ultimately suffered some spider bites. In fact, we suffered 6 spider bites before we were able to dispatch of that giant spider, and now we will be able to roll on the parts table to do a looting action, which is really why we're here. So we will see what we get on the parts table. Part of the rolling up here. And we're getting a 40. I don't think there's a modifier there. Hopefully not. We get a hand or a paw. A spare hand is always helpful. Not worth any gold, but that's okay because we are not looking for gold here. We're looking to do some crafting with it. So we're going to add this to our inventory and be pretty happy with that encounter as we then move on and continue to explore this forest. So we'll do the map roll. Exploring next. We are going to 35, which is a green area. It's going to be a geographic area. And a brief note on my mapping choices. Here you can see this was the Glade of the Unseen Princess, and I'm noting down what the area was. I have an indication of the color it was here, keyed here, and I also have the number of the map. This isn't necessary, just in case I need to go back and reference it or think I've made a mistake. I don't know. I like to have that here, as well as what I found here. This is the area that we're moving into. It is a green area, so I will note it as the second quote-unquote room that we are in, and I will key that with a green number 2. Now, I'm not going to indicate I'm not going to label this here yet until I know sort of at the end where we are so that the spacing works out. And I'll have a history of where we were and what we found keyed by the color as well as the actual map. One of my favorite things to do in playing any of these kinds of games and rolling on random tables is when it's geographic, because filling the space randomly with things, whether it's man-made or natural, just really brings me into the story. So we rolled a 42, and there is a trapped chest. A large wooden chest banded with silver trims sits proudly waiting to be opened. The adventurer may try and open the chest, optional, by making a trapped chest check and adding it to our dungeon sheet and marking it with a check. If the chest is open, we may attempt to open the chest as many times as we wish until it is open. And it's using traps and lucky. I think we have lucky, and there's potentially a treasure inside. So, of course, we're going to open this chest. I mean, what kind of adventurer would we be if we didn't? But before we do that, I want us to have a better sense of where we are. There's an old D&D module that has a bunch of random wilderness tables on it, and I have it somewhere. I can't remember what it is. Maybe somebody watching can remind me of what it is. I have it filed somewhere. My game closet and game resources are sorely in need of reorganization as yet another summer project, but it's summer now and I don't see myself doing it. So I'm pulling in Scarlet Heroes because I know they've got some wilderness stuff in there just for the fun of it. We're going to see a little bit more about where we are here, and we know already, generally speaking, that we are in a forest. But let's see. There's probably remnants of some stuff here, and I'm just going to show you a little bit of how we determine what that is, and then how we possibly build it into some kind of a story that the side story that I guess I'm referring to. And again, I got to get a better system here for this. So, all right, the feature builder is some pre-human who did forging or crafting, and they died out. The current state of things that we find this is that there was rebuilt elsewhere, but there's been signs of recent use. Now, you remember that we did discover those bat wings that we picked up, so I'm getting some sense here already of what's going on. And let's look a little bit at, there's some clay bricks lying around, in addition to this wonderful treasure chest we just found. They are connected. Tapestries, possibly. This is going to explain the presence of this chest in the forest. And I got one more thing to figure out here. That is an ambush from the trees. So perhaps we're going to be dealing with another wandering monster. And of course, where would I be without rolling on the Tome of Adventure Design? So we'll come back here to just give us a little more sense of the nature around on this usual tree area, 45. Trees that meld together at the branches or roots. So we are in a dense part of the forest. So we left the clearing and moved to a denser part of the forest, and there are roots visible, so tightly knotted roots here with some unusual, maybe sap coming up. See if there's any animals around. Not necessarily encounter animals, we'll call them flavor animals. Motes of light surround the animal. So if we see an animal, maybe it's a little magical here, who knows? And 51 for some weird terrain. There's some rocks and boulders, and they are pyramid shaped rocks and boulders. All right, I think we we're going to look at the, we skipped over these plants here. 93 stems of plants, but not the actual plants. I guess that makes sense for this being an area of where something had happened in the past, and they're delicious stems, so maybe we can have a little snack. All right, we'll put this all together. After journeying a while, Edwinna, the half-elf druid, finds herself in an area overgrown with tree branches. Mistletoe and oak, two roots from which druids got their name, abound. Littering the ground are fragments of clay bricks, stems of once vibrant flowers which are leaking an unusual sap in the dirt. The tightly knotted tree roots spring up from the ground, and light is dim here, blocked by the thick branches and boughs above her. Edwinna recognizes this place as the corroded nest of the hidden maker, a long-ago magical forge where her druid ancestors produced all sorts of treasures. Looking around, she sees the remnants of what was abandoned. Molding tapestries have been overtaken by the forest floors. A mysterious light shines around the large chest she sees.
So we're definitely going to try to open this chest. We are instructed that for it's a dexterity minus 15. I guess it's corroded, or it has the potential locks on it. We could use traps or lucky for this, but I've got a +5 lucky, so my dexterity is 45 minus 15 down to 30 plus 5, so 35. We're going to just do this. It says I can attempt it as many times as I want. That was a fail. Let's see, is there a penalty for attempting this to do it? It's not indicating. Yes, it is indicating I'm spending time and I'm losing hit points every time I try it. So, well, I wish I had noticed that before I went ahead and tried it. So, coming up here, this got a little bit messed up. We just spent some time trying to do that, and we lost 4 hit points. So I will make that a proper notation down. We've been bitten by a spider and we've been pinched or something by this chest. So we're down already to 10 hit points. Now I've got, I can be a little reckless here because you remember if I want, I mean, you know, I'm focusing on this chest, who knows what it's even going to be in here. I don't actually have, well, I have this. So I could waste it, you know, I could keep trying and waste it on this. Maybe I'll do that. Just showing you what some of the options are. It's a bummer that I can't somehow have the option of using strength to bash this thing open instead of dexterity, because I seem to have some strength things. Well, there's a lesser healing potion. I have some of those. Yeah. Oh, what's this? Drink to gain +5 dexterity. Maybe we should do it. Maybe we should use this potion because, what did I say? We're 45, 30. We're at 35. This would give us to 40. Is it worth it? Is it worth it to drink this potion? We're losing 4 hit points every time. I think so. I think it's worth it. I think we're going to do it. And so now we're rolling continuous take on the action here. So, you know, I'm not cheating. We're going to roll. We're going to drink this. And we're going to now attempt to get a 40 or less. And we did. Awesome. We got a 17. So we are in business with this treasure chest. And then it instructs us to, that was worth it, I guess. Well, of course, we don't know what's in it yet. To find out what's in it, we are rolling on table Treasure B +10. So let's check that out. Treasure B table +10. Treasure B +10. Let's check it out. Hoping for something high. We got a 60, 70, a potion, a potion of greater dexterity. Yeah, that's what we got. A potion of greater dexterity. All right, well, you know what? This is what it is. So I will make the appropriate note. We'll take care of that and settle things up and move on. So now here's my new potion. A lot of effort for, you know, basically a circular result, but I hope you, in watching this, found it as enjoyable as I did to get to that point. And that's really really a testament to the imagination that one can bring to this rule set. And I'm realizing also that per what I said I was doing, the quest that I said I was doing, I think involved looting monsters of attack value of 43 or more. So that paw I got even is not going to technically let me do the crafting or be a participant in this crafting. I don't think, because I have to continue on with the quest. I can't just make this brew. This is made before the quest, so you're not, per the rules, allowed to kind of stop in the middle and do your crafting. Now, why wouldn't you be able to do that? Maybe you would in a clearing once you get rid of all the monsters, because, of course, as you can see, the rule set allows for flexibility. So in any case, that is where I am now as I leave this canopy of the hidden maker. I called it a corroded. I think I changed it. Corroded nest. I was really struggling for that word, but it's the canopy of trees is what that was. And it's a canopy of the hidden maker or something. We did get this potion there. We already have the bat wing and we have the paw, but we're a little further away from attaining the goal of crafting that I had planned this whole demo to show you. The video is getting long, and I think I have, even though I wasn't expressly setting out to do that, I think I have shown you the ways in which some of the new material in the Adventurous Companion really opens this up. I mean, literally opens it up by taking it out of the dungeon per se, because I was playing in exterior space, and also just adds more levels to what's going on. And I opened to this page, not so much intentionally, but it's a good example page, because this is an entirely new rule that came in, or mechanic, where you can, I mentioned this in my coverage of this book, but just to point it out again here, with a certain type of excessive overage of damage, you can further twist the knife, as it were, into your victim, and by this chart get some further death kill description for the victim of your combat. And of course, you could build this type of descriptive level out into any aspect of what you're doing, and I showed a way of doing it by bringing in further material, or external material, to further describe the environments, which I like to do, and to give a little bit of a story of my character here, Edwinna, who is, see again, with all the stuff that she was carrying, really none of which the only one thing we used, we didn't even need to use, and then, you know, it was a kind of circularity. Even with all of that, there is the capacity to develop a rich, involving narrative with just your pen, your paper, your imagination, and this wonderful set of rules, D100 Dungeon, from the mind of Martin Knight. Thanks for watching.